What's up to all of my Jackson people out there? Hope we enjoyed the premiere the other night. In this video, we're going to talk all about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1, Future Days. We're going to go over the game comparisons, the Easter eggs, and then we're going to talk, unfortunately, about my 9 predictions I had before the episode came out. And guys, it went about as well as that guy that was trying to tap out against Ellie. Let's go. Right off the bat, we get the Salt Lake crew. Not long after Joel wipes out about 95% of the population at the end of Season 1, we're introduced to Abby, Owen, Manny, Mel, and Nora. The big takeaway from this scene is that the show is not going to hide Abby's motivations for hunting down Joel. For everyone that's played the game, we all know that you have to go through the entirety of Ellie's playthrough in 3 days in Seattle, the confrontation with Abby, and then the switch over to Abby before we finally get that confirmation as to why she has such a vendetta and a grudge against Joel. So essentially, you find out 12 to 15 hours earlier here compared to the game why Abby wants to hunt Joel down so badly. Personally, I'm indifferent towards this change. You know why Abby's going after Joel if you've played the game, so what's it matter if we find out from the first or second scene, or when Ellie tracks Nora down, or when Ellie has the discussion with Abby at the theater at the end of day 3. This is a special thoughts and prayers segment for this video here, and I want to give a special shout out to Jordan, Leah, and Nick, the 3 that did not make it into Abby's group that go to Jackson. In all reality, this change makes a lot of sense. You go from a 30-hour video game to a 7-episode season, and fringe people like Jordan, Leah, and Nick just don't make a ton of sense. That roster all of a sudden is going to be really bloated and fat, and they just don't have the time to spend on it. I do have to give him credit out of these 3 here. If there was one that could make it into this squad that I could just grant a life to, it would be Jordan, just for the sole fact that he has a very satisfying death at the hands of Ellie at the school in her day 1. These 2 just had a grudge just from the start there back in the chalet, excluding all of the stuff that happens to Joel. Jordan's the guy that gives Ellie the kick across the face. I don't think Leah has a single line in the game, but she does send Jordan some nudes, so there is that, I guess. Bad taste in men. I think that's safe to say. I mean, let's be real here. Jordan, come on. Jordan. But she dies whenever Ellie and Dina get to the TV station at the hands of the Scars. As for Nick, oh boy, I got to be honest with you guys. I never even knew what this guy's name was. I literally had to research it. I'm like, who is this unlucky dude that stands in the back of the room and closes the door whenever Abby goes ahead and lands the beat down on Joel? This has to be the most unfortunate fringe dude in all time. I honest to God, like, I didn't even know that he had a name, but there he was that day. Abby needed another warm body to make the trip to Jackson, and unfortunately for this guy, he jumped on the truck that day and made the trip to Wyoming. I say unfortunate because Nick had the least to do with this whole entire assault on Joel, and he easily suffers the most brutal death out of anyone in Abby's group. We jump 5 years into the future, and we can see already that Joel and Dina have a relationship when he calls her kiddo. I think this is an improvement on the game because, in all reality, they've been there for 5 years. This seems to be one of Ellie's closest friends, and surely Joel would know one of Ellie's closest friends since they've been there now for half of a decade. Not to mention they do patrols together, and it seems like Joel is like the Varys of Jackson when it comes to who's doing what on the patrol. So yeah, I'm sure he's familiar with Dina at this point. Ellie's day 2 flashback finding strings kicks off whenever she is testing out Tommy's super duper high powered rifle that he can snipe infected at from like 5 miles away or whatever he said in season 1. It pretty much provides background noise for the conversation between Ellie and Tommy as he just casually lets her know that she's getting taken off of starting duties and being put on the bench when it comes to her patrols because she's apparently not taking them seriously. In game, for the flashback finding strings, Joel lets Ellie know that even though that he does, think that she's like a little bit too green to be going on patrols, he's going to give his recommendation for her to go from group patrols to paired patrols. So there's like a little small parallel there. In regards to like talk over patrols, even though in the show she's getting kicked off of it, in the game Joel's actually going to recommend her promotion. Next we go to the Joel and Gail scene, and no, I do not have any gameplay for this because Gail does not exist in The Last of Us Part 2. She's a complete show creation, and I gotta say this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode. A Jackson Town therapist. Again, doesn't exist in the game, but I can see the need for it. Makes sense. And Gail comes out swinging right from the start, and then eventually just lets us know that she's got to get something off her chest. All right, Joel, We can't continue this session. I cannot give you sage advice and counsel until I get this off my chest. And that's, I know that you killed my husband, who happens to be Eugene. Eugene exists in The Last of Us Part 2, but only by memory, photos, and some notes scribbled and strewn about the place. We do know that he was a Firefly and he served with Tommy, and he's obviously in the Jackson community now. He's really good with electronics and building things. And oh yeah, the guy has an underground weed garden in the bowels of the library. In game, Eugene dies, I would say roughly within a year, which is what Gail says on the show. It's been 1 year, it was her birthday. This is her first birthday without her husband. It's been about a year since he's died. He does die not long before the events in The Last of Us Part 2. And actually, you can probably figure that out if I remember correctly. You can go through the logbooks there and see the last time that he either initialed it, or maybe there's a note in there referencing whenever Dina did a patrol with him. It certainly seems like Dina spent more time with him in the game than Ellie did, just based on the stories. Dina swings by Ellie's detached garage and summons her. Hey, it's time to go to the patrol. The only thing I wanted to point out here is this is reflective of how Jesse swings by Ellie's place at the very beginning of The Last of Us Part 2. It's not 6 o'clock in the morning this time, but the thing I wanted to point out was a switchblade, still sitting in the exact same spot. The other game to show difference I want to point out here, besides the Dina and Jesse swap, is when this moment is taking place. In the game, this is the morning after the dance, as you'll see Jesse and Ellie reference moments from the night before, and in the show, the dance has not happened yet. It will happen later that day after the patrol. All right, so I wanted to talk about the patrol next. Ellie and Dina taking off together with another group of like 3 people. We get Kat here, and Kat is, at least in game, we have not got this context yet in the show, but that's Ellie's ex in the game. So Kat is now her team captain, which is kind of funny because Jesse tells Dina and Ellie how everyone else looks up to them, and, why aren't one of them the team captain? But again, I guess if Tommy's telling Ellie 10 minutes before this that she's goofing off and she's going to get sent down to the minor league, maybe she would not be team captain. The other thing that I thought was funny is the dude that's sitting next to Kat whenever they get to the supermarket. This dude looks like the real life version of the Marlboro Man. And it's just funny to sit there and see that guy standing to the side of Kat as if he's tagging along for like an upskilling session. Now, I want to point out a moment where we do actually see Kat in motion in The Last of Us Part 2. Now, it's not in the base game. It is in one of the 3 lost levels there that were the unfinished levels that they gave us a little sneak peek of behind the curtain there when Part 2 Remastered came out. If you go to Jackson Party, it shows us a lot of context surrounding the party before Ellie gets inside with that big cutscene with Dina. We have here Ellie, very anxious, nervous. She wants nothing to do with attending this thing. So she kind of just drinks a couple bottles of beer, wanders around, tries to shake the nerves, takes in the sights, the sounds, the games, and then she visits one tattoo artist named Kat. One little difference here in front of Greenplace Market. We have not a dead moose, but we have a dead bear. We get the moose in the game. It's taken down by the infected. They swap it out for a bear here. My assumption would be they wanted to show that the infected were beaten up as well. And a bear would, in close combat, have a better chance at knocking a couple infected down than a moose would. This is such a silly thing to get satisfaction from, but I had a little smile on my face whenever Ellie and Dina used the truck to get inside the supermarket. You see the show swap out so many of the game mechanics sometimes, whether it's combat or whether it's, like platforming, for example, like trying to get like someone thrust over your shoulder to get to a higher point. I'm glad they just kept like a little detail like that and they didn't just simply walk in through the front door. Okay, so the Easter egg of the episode, maybe we'll do that here through the whole season. The biggest Easter egg from game to the show here is definitely, without a doubt, the good boy of the month there, the dog that won employee of the month inside the supermarket. In a game, this is like an additional clue, like certainly a gameplay mechanic that you're definitely not going to see in a show, which is the code there to break a safe. Right, we're getting a pretty faithful walkthrough of the supermarket here because Ellie falls through the ceiling just like she does in the game, but this time no Dina. This leads Ellie to go down there and be introduced to a stalker for the first time here in the show. And then, of course, she gets bit again. Is this the second or third time I think we've seen her bit in the show? We can't have Dina down there witnessing that yet. We'll get Ellie obviously later in the season here telling Dina about her immunity. But now is not the time to see it. So obviously that's why they exclude Dina from that scene. Ellie's got to kind of like gather herself quickly when Dina comes running in and really sell the fact that she wasn't bitten. All right, just before they go to the dance, this is, again, just another stupid thing that I kind of get a little bit of enjoyment out of if you play the game and enjoy like the little lines and the little intricacies that make it over from the game. Joel giving Ellie just a little bit of shit there for the state of that guitar, which as soon as I saw it lying on the ground, like on top of like a pile of clothes, I'm like, as soon as Joel sees this, there's going to be trouble here. He is not going to appreciate the treatment of that guitar. That is poor guitar etiquette. You just knew that was going to be an issue. And of course, Ellie's like, yeah, I've been playing it a ton recently. And Joel picks it up and it's obviously out of tune. He goes off to go and find better strings for it, which is once again another call to that day 2 flashback, finding strings. Like I said before, whenever Ellie's shooting the sniper with Tommy, in the flashback, they start off shooting the sniper. And then, this whole debacle here with the guitar strings sends Ellie and Joel off on a mission to a hotel that is covered with infected in a pretty epic bloater fight. Okay, so speaking of bloaters, Joel comes into the dance out of nowhere and bulldozes Seth like a bloater running at you full sprint. Now that we got that out of the way, I just want to give kudos for this scene. If we want to talk about in this episode, again, if we're going to do like the biggest Easter egg of the episode, you can maybe do like the most faithful scene of the episode to the game. From the moment Ellie walks into the dance to who Dina's dancing with, the dance that they're doing, the dialogue between those two. Enter Jesse. He hates these things. Ellie does too. Ellie tells Jesse that he and Dean will be back together within 2 weeks. And then in comes Dina and she just swoops Ellie away. And, Jesse's had enough at that point, reminds them they got an early morning. And then everything that happens after that, again, the whole dialogue, everything, enter Seth, enter Joel, and then, party's over at this point. That was just, amazing. It was absolutely impeccable how faithful this scene was to the game. I mean, I've seen people online do like the side-by-side comparisons of game to show here, and it's pretty special. Another difference that we get from game to show is this cutscene right here, which is arguably the biggest cutscene in the entire game. This happens just after all of the madness at the dance, but we do not see it until the end of the game because, like I said at the beginning, Ellie's present starts the morning after the dance. Instead of going up there and talking to Joel, she storms off to her room, which I take it they just have something else in mind for this conversation. I'm sure that this moment, this dialogue between these two will come up. I just think that they have another plan in mind for it. I believe the reason that they don't do it is because we've not been privy to that flashback yet between Ellie and Joel when Ellie goes back to St. Mary's and figures everything out. Okay, last part of the video here. I want to talk about my predictions. If you missed a short there, just check it out in the top right. I have 9 predictions going into episode 1, just summer, dialogue, comparisons, predictions that are in like pivotal moments. Others are like little goofy Easter eggs and things like that. I did not do well, guys. I went 1 for 9. And if you watch the short, it's actually funny because if you only watched the first 10 to 15 seconds of it and you swiped away, you'd think I was a genius because the first thing I say in it is that we are going to get a Gustavo Santaolalla cameo, who is the composer of the Last of Us soundtrack. We see him at the beginning of The Last of Us Part 2. He's just sitting out there playing the banjo in the middle of the town. And I just feel like they do those little Easter eggy stuff like that. So again, is that as big of an Easter egg as the Good Boy of the Month? I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. Let me know in the comments. But we did get him there, not in that same exact spot, but he is at the dance at the end. He's sitting on stage in the chair on the right side. They're playing the guitar while they play that song that shows up at the dance. So I nailed that one. I got that one right. And then I missed every single one after that. So let me talk about the one that I almost hit on first. I said that there would be a Curtis and Viper 2 reference. Ellie brings it up to Dina in game when they're traveling through the town before the market. And this is like on their road to recovery. We're going to make amends. We're going to watch a movie tonight. We're going to watch Curtis and Viper 2. In the pilot, Sarah borrows Curtis and Viper 2 from their neighbors. She watches it later that night with Joel on his birthday. So I'm like, okay, there's a comp here. Little did I know, that Ellie would not be watching the movie with Joel. In fact, it would be Dina. And do you really think for 1 second that Joel would start Dina on the sequel of Curtis and Viper instead of watching the original first? There's no way he would do that. Joel's a man of principle and order, and he would not let Dina start with the sequel. So the reference in the show, and they actually say it twice, is Curtis and Viper. They never say Curtis and Viper 2, so we don't do half points on here. I'm going to have to take the L on that one. Okay, I'll just run through the ones I didn't get here. We did not get the snowball fight. I thought that was a layup. I thought that would be the show's way of showing like Ellie and Dina's like goofy relationship, but instead they swapped that out for like how they pregame and map out how they're going to, jump a clicker. Where they're sitting there making faces at each other and stuff. So, yeah, that got swapped out. I thought that for sure was going to be in there, but I missed that. The next one I bring up is the Weston's Market. Now, Weston's Pharmacy. Weston's Pharmacy is something that we've seen in game at least 3 times. It's apparently the pharmacy out there in the Midwest or the Mountain West. We first see it in Left Behind when Ellie's going through the hospital to find Joel a med pack. We then see it in The Last of Us Part 2 in this same spot when they're inside the supermarket. After falling through the floor, there's a Weston's Pharmacy sign there. Later in Ellie's day 2, whenever she's going to the hospital to track down Nora, she passes through another one. I thought that would just be like a little Easter egg there that they would put in the show, but I was wrong. It did not make it. The next thing I guess, which in hindsight was really stupid, was that Ellie was going to whip a Molotov inside the grocery store. This is when Dina gives her the recipe and a Molotov in game. And absolutely not. That did not happen. And why was that dumb is because a lot of the combat stuff does not make its way over from the game to the show. Okay, they try to keep it a little bit more realistic. And I don't know if they just didn't want to get into like the nitty gritty with Ellie's, crafting speed at this point of the show, which is probably not very high because it's the first episode of the season, right? Now, if we were in Ellie's day 2, for example, she's firing on all cylinders. She's making it rain fire out there. Little nod, a little foreshadowing whenever Jesse threw Ellie and Dina the yellow and green rag. I'm like, dude, this is like 50% of the ingredients right here to make a Molotov. I was feeling really good about it in a moment, and then they just never popped up again. And lastly, I completely whiffed on the Joel and Abby timeline stuff. So I actually failed 4 predictions just by that right there because we did not even come remotely close to getting that scene. My predictions were that Joel was going to say, "Yo, act like you've heard of us. Why don't you say whatever speech it is you've got rehearsed and get this over with?" And then Abby saying, "You don't get to rush this." And then the 4th prediction was that Abby was going to begin the assault in this episode, but she would not finish Joel off until episode 2. So we weren't even close. I knew about 20-25 minutes into the episode that was going to be in danger. So yeah, 1 for 8 in the predictions. We'll keep this going here throughout the season. I'll see what my record is at the end. If I can be over 500, I'll be happy. I started off in the gutter here just after 1 episode, so I'm going to have to step my game up for the episode 2 predictions. I'll put that out in a short again. I would say at the latest it'll come out Sunday morning leading up to the episode that night. So let me know in the comments, guys. Did you enjoy this episode? What did you like? What didn't you like? What'd you think about the Easter eggs, the comparisons, the changes, and what you guys think is coming ahead? I appreciate you as always, and I'll see you soon.